Hello, and welcome to The Ordinary Effect, the place where we talk about the things that people sometimes rarely want to talk about. Not all people, sometimes for different reasons. There's a topic that I've talked about a couple of times, a little bit of a continuing, ongoing story. The automated speed enforcement cameras. They've been in the news here in Ontario a fair bit. A week ago, Premier of Ontario, Doug Ford, announced that he was going to legislate the removal of the automated speed enforcement cameras across the province. To many, this is welcomed news. To some, maybe not so much. And I get it, there's reasons on both sides of the aisle on this one. But I think if you listen back to I have 2 episodes that I started covering earlier in the year on this. And if you listen back to my experience, maybe there's some answers in there in terms of why a premier would step in to take care of things. And I don't want to repeat the 2 episodes here. You go listen to them. They're very fact-filled. That situation is still ongoing for me, where essentially I received a speeding ticket by through one of these devices. I was on my way to my father's funeral. I was in an area that I don't usually drive. I get this letter in the mail saying I had gone over the limit. And what's interesting about it is the signage, right? A big part of my argument was, but your signs are misleading to people. Never mind the fact that the one sign that I dealt with was blocked, but obstructed. But the signage is very difficult. The manner in which people in the province navigate the streets and have to deal with the signage and the placement of these things is very, very suspicious. Okay. Now, I've been, trying to deal with different layers of officials to try and get this message heard. Now, that was one issue. The other issue that I found was that this appeals tribunal that they have, there's some flaws that are built into it. And I don't know if they're built into it on purpose. I really haven't figured that out, because when you point them out, the officials around them, even the lawyers, try to point the finger and say, oh, well, we're governed by the provincial law. So I did engage. I engaged my member of provincial parliament, and they've been working with me. Michael Parsa's office have been working with me to try and get the message heard at the region, at York Region. And York Region, I have not heard from any councillors until most recently, after the Doug Ford announcement. And I wrote to the region and said, hey, now that the premier is going to remove these, can you focus on can you focus on the trust issue? Can you focus on the fact that Ontarians in this community have been fooled by the way that you did the signage, by the way that you held the tribunal hearings, etc. And one councillor, Joe DePaula, wrote me back, and this is the first time I've heard from him. And he said, hey, thanks for advocating for this. I've been trying at council, and I was voted down. I think he said something like 17-1 or 16-1 to try and have them rethink. And this is what I kept saying, rethink what you're doing with the signs, rethink what you're doing with the cameras, rethink how people are able to engage with you to prove whether they were in a situation or not, beyond a dumb camera taking a picture at a moment in time without any other context. And York Region is so obtuse that they refused to actually engage in any of this conversation. So, you know what? I bet, and I don't have any firsthand knowledge, but I bet the premier had gotten enough of these phone calls from citizens. Never mind the fact that in Toronto, somebody keeps cutting the cameras down, and Toronto just keeps trying to put them back up, right? They just keep trying to put them back up. And so there's a message there, I think, that the premier is hearing, saying this isn't working. But that's not just it. And on the other, I kept saying on the other side of the aisle, on the other side of the aisle, you've got some folks saying, but they make the community safer, and they slow people down, and they work. Really? They work? How many millions of dollars are the cameras collecting because people are going over whatever the threshold that is set, because we don't know what the threshold is, and nobody will tell you what the threshold is. And what that means is if the camera's set up, if the speed is set up to be 50 kilometers an hour, does the camera snap your picture at 51, 52, 55, 54? Nobody knows. Nobody knows what the threshold is. It's not transparent to people. And the argument is, well, if we tell you the threshold, you're just going to push it to that limit. Look, people are trying to get places, and you're putting these cameras in places that's hurting their pocketbook, and you're putting them in places that's hurting their pocketbook and in places that they might not need to be. Okay? If you're collecting millions of dollars because these things are firing off ticket after ticket after ticket, people are not slowing down. Okay? They're not slowing down. So you can't say to me, "Oh, well, look at it, they're working." No, they're not. They're collecting money. That's what they're working to do. That's the cash grab part. Okay? Putting a speed camera on a 4, 5, 6 lane stretch of road, okay, where people are trying to get between communities, when the school is, a block inward, okay, and not in the vicinity of that area, that's a cash grab. Putting a camera in a private school area where nobody walks to school, there isn't even a walkway, that's a cash grab. Okay? This is what the communities have done. This is what they need to look at themselves and say, we've done this to ourselves. Are there other ways to slow traffic down in the areas that we need to slow traffic down? Look, my kids' old elementary school, they put in these shallow speed bumps. They put in these signs in the road that force drivers to slow down a bit because you don't want to hit the signs. And I've seen them in other communities, and in those areas they work. I watched them work. I drove it, right? And at first I'm like, oh no, speed bumps. But you know what? It actually worked. I was actually able to exit the school grounds, like the parking lot, without thinking I was going to get run over because people are speeding trying to get places, right? So they worked. And unfortunately, people did the communities, you did it to yourselves. You did it to yourselves by speeding in the first place. But the speed cameras should be designed to be catching the people who are really speeding. I mean, I was out the other night and I saw a couple of cars just ripping through the neighborhood. I mean, ripping. They weren't going 5 kilometers over the speed limit. They were going 30 kilometers over the speed limit. That's who the speed cameras should catch. That's the dangerous driving, okay? Me going 52 in a 50, me going 59 in a 50, depending on the situation, that's not speeding. That's not compromising safety, especially where there isn't safety to be compromised in the first place. And so if the community, if the region would have listened, okay, if they would just listen to people and not try to find this as a revenue tool, because that's what it is. I mean, in Toronto, Olivia Chow, she's upset because it's a revenue tool that's going to be taken away from her, right? But it's a revenue tool on the backs of normal people just doing normal things, trying to get to normal places, to work, to their place of religious worship, to playgrounds, to family events. Catch the right people in the right places. Okay, look at. This isn't done. I'm still pursuing, even though this is for me. If legislation passes in October, that'll be one thing where they're going to take these things away and they're going to look at other tools to deal with traffic. But I'm still dealing with the community. I still believe that the community acted somewhat nefariously. They defended their system. They defended their flawed system. They defended the poor signage. They tried to hide behind provincial law. They avoided doing the right things for the citizens of Ontario. And so I did pursue. I've got something going on with the Ombudsman of Ontario. I don't know if that'll go anywhere yet. We've been going back and forth. I still have some meetings happening there, but I am pursuing it because I don't like to see the erosion of trust in the public system. And this is an erosion of trust. If we have elected officials willing to promote, a cash flow over true community safety, then I believe that those people should be held accountable and responsible to the community, because they're not acting in the overall best interest of the community. And I get it, folks. There might be some folks out there say, "Oh, but it's dangerous, and it'll affect our kids and our families." And there's things that can be done without speed cameras, and those speed cameras aren't going to stop those guys that are driving 30, 40, 50 kilometers over the speed limit and are a danger. There's other things that need to be done there. Okay. Anyways, looking forward to following you. Hats off to the Premier of Ontario for doing what he did with that. The other parties, if you're fighting this, you're fighting the wrong fight. I hope you get your act together, support it the right way. Don't contribute to the erosion of public trust. This is a really good example. We have a lot of good tools out there, a lot of good examples, and there's some people trying to do the right thing. Thanks for joining me, The Ordinary Effect. Hope you come back. Take care.